Paganini's Adagio in G minor. It's played by Vedran Smalovic. He was the lead cellist in the Sarajevo Opera Orchestra, and he became known as the cellist of Sarajevo in 1992, when Sarajevo was under siege in the war between Croatia and Yugoslavia. And one night there was a bombing that killed 22 people who were standing in a bread line. And for 22 nights after that, Vedran Smalovic came out and played his cello in the rubble as the war kept going around him, in memory of the pain and grief of that nation. Just wondered if anybody had any reactions to that music that you want to share. That story is familiar, yeah. Yeah. Can I actually take that again? Thank you.
It felt to me like the music was carrying me, sort of like a slowly moving body of water.
Mm-hmm. Carrying you.
And I was very pleased with where it went.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? A sadness, yeah.
I felt searching and rest.
Rest.
Side by side.
Interesting. Thank you. All right, any hands up online? If not? Okay. Sure. So deep sorrow, but also peace. Somebody put in the chat, thank you. I use this because I found it in Susan Cain's book, Bittersweet. She included this in the introduction to her book, Bittersweet, which is about how sorrow and longing make us whole. She's also the author of the book Quiet, that you may be familiar with, about people who are introverts. And she gave this as an example and then questioned, why is it that some people are drawn to sad music? You know, music like this that's written in a minor key, or Leonard Cohen's music. I don't know if you think of some of your favorite music. Sometimes there's some sadness there. And she describes this tendency to melancholy as bittersweet. So it's a tendency to states of longing and poignancy and sorrow, an acute awareness of passing time, and a curiously piercing joy at the beauty of the world. So it's this combination of beauty and sorrow all at once. And some of us are really inclined to inhabit this space of bittersweet. You know, I'm one of those people where my favorite movie is Good Will Hunting, about the abused and neglected boy who gets over his rage. And my favorite book these days is Demon Copperhead, about the abused and neglected boy who's dealing with the opioid crisis. And I love Sufi poets who write of longing. You get the picture, right? They say, Shakespeare says it best. He says, I can suck melancholy out of a song as a weasel sucks eggs. But how about you? There's a little quiz in the book Bittersweet. She says, you know you inhabit the state of bittersweet if you say yes to many of these questions. Do you react intensely to music, art, or nature? Do you feel elevated by sad music? Do you tend to see the happiness and sadness in things all at once? Do you tear up easily at touching TV commercials? Do you find comfort or inspiration in a rainy day? Have others described you as an old soul? Well, if so, you may be one of those bittersweet people. Even though our culture sort of directs us away from the sad and beautiful, and it seems to suggest that we really should strive to always be happy, seek happiness, seek entertainment. If you're feeling blue or bored, you're supposed to stream Netflix and get over it. There's this real tendency to see that as not okay. But Mimi Xu wrote in her Tricycle article that grief is an ancestor, that if we befriend only what feels good, we alienate our heart. When we're judged by others and ourselves for weeping about separation, heartbreak, trauma, tragedies, accidents, and death, we push vital parts of ourselves away. The binaries of good and evil categorize our feelings as evil and our happy feelings as good. And when sorrow is seen with self-judgment, it can generate a great sense of fragmentation within. Suppressing our sadness can grow into a cruel cynicism, making us scared of our own feelings and doubtful of the fullness of life. So I was curious about this idea of avoiding our sadness. In fact, sometimes I think that we feel as though this practice is supposed to make us happy and avoid our sadness. But instead, we're asked to be able to be with our beautiful monsters and to love whatever is in our path to awakening. And sometimes to ask, is there something in this ache that can serve my awakening? In Bittersweet, Susan Cain reports on these studies by researchers who have looked at people's responses to sad music. And she's found that of all the variables influencing whether a person is likely to be moved by sad music, the strongest it is empathy. Those who responded to others' troubles with compassion rather than personal discomfort or anxiety, for them, sad music was likely a form of communion, a connection. And research by Dr. Keltner at the Berkeley Greater Good Sciences Center asked, what is sadness good for? And he said, sadness triggers compassion. That compassion literally means to suffer together. And it's the bridge we need to connect with each other, one of our best and most redemptive qualities. So perhaps this capacity to look at sorrow and not look away isn't morose. This research would tend to suggest that perhaps this deep compassion is actually a superpower. But clearly seeing another's suffering or fears or our own can be difficult. And at the same time, it brings us in touch with humanity. Research by neuroscience tells us that our impulse to respond to people who are sad sits in the same location in our brain as our need to breathe, digest food, reproduce, and protect our babies. Keltner says caring is right at the heart of human existence. Sadness is about caring, and the mother of sadness is compassion. So our willingness to be with difficulty is critical to our sense of compassion for ourselves and for others in a collective sense. It makes us willing to take on the suffering of the world and not look away as well. So we are able to see and not look away from a growing homeless population, from racism, from caring about victims of gun violence, for grieving the assault on our earth. Compassion allows us to see clearly and to hold kindly this ache of suffering and not look away. So I'm going to ask us to take a moment. You'll have to turn around up front so you can see the screen because we're going to show a brief video. This is a training video from the Cleveland Clinic, prepared for medical personnel and staff. And again, as you watch, I just invite you to tune into your responses, any thoughts or feelings, maybe sense from the body about what this has to tell you. See what's going on right now as you watch this. Any connection with any mood or emotion, any feeling as you watched? Tears. Oh. Hard to watch. Thanks, Sharon.
Lama. With the beautiful music, I had tears behind my eyes. And watching this, I was in nursing for some time. And seeing that baby, I just brought it back.
Yeah.
And then seeing the dog brought the tears down. Okay, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Sheila.
Well, I hope this isn't controversial, but that care and compassion isn't necessarily what I experience in a hospital setting. So I'm sorry, but the first thing I thought of is, where is this place?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's.
Yeah, I have to admit that I was a little cynical. It felt like an advertisement for we're the place. And I kept, okay, Susan, but let yourself connect with people, and because I was just in a hospital fairly recently, that feeling of, the anticipation. I could relate to once I got through that. But yes, the package was, yeah.
And this video always makes me think of this song I have in my little office at home. Be kind always. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. And if we truly, I probably have walked through a hospital and, never thought twice about what others might be going through. So much in my own head. Yeah. Any comments from Zoom that we?
Yes, I was really glad to have that experience. It just brought me so close to other people. I was grateful for it.
Thanks, Eliza.
I have one comment, Marylouise. This video was actually it's a video for trainees, physicians, and nurses. And believe it or not, that video was really enlightening for a lot of people. That particularly some of the physicians. So just to say that while it didn't seem unusual for us to put ourselves in others' shoes, I think it was really new for some people.
Yeah. And hopefully opening a few eyes of those getting ready to, go into a hospital to treat people. Yeah. Well, I showed him more just because we're tapping into this idea of compassion and the idea of how much more compassion is triggered when I understand just a little bit about where you're coming from. I felt tingly. I figured out where they get the term, the goosebumps, because it just raised that kind of response. And, I imagine that we all have worries of our own in that way. And we don't go running around down the elevator or the escalator sharing them. We walk around and often, very seldom, get the support we might need. And sometimes, we all deal with those kinds of scary things in our own lives. We worry about others. We have that waking up at 3 a.m. worrying about ourselves, our health, or our finances, or one of our kids, or a loved one, or the state of the world. And if you're anything like me, sometimes I find it hard to make the mind stop thinking about that, worrying about it. But you have to wonder what would happen if instead of thinking about it, we're actually able to go ahead and feel that feeling that's coming up. Just stay close and open up to the feelings that are coming up when we have those worries. Because we each have our own worries in life, and none of us will escape that. But this contemplating and sometimes assessing about them really doesn't give us the relief we're looking for. Because when our thoughts are unhappy, we go to our thinking head for some kind of distraction and entertainment. And the thinking mind gives us opinions and beliefs. But it's the heart that gives us the truth we seek. And the Buddha taught that true happiness comes from the heart. And when we wish to investigate our present moment experience, that means tuning into the heart body to notice what's happening now and trying to listen and tune in with that body. Jill Shepard described the 3 types of wisdom in Zen as the head is our intellectual wisdom, the heart is that applied and reflective wisdom, and the gut and the body, that's just where we get it, in our gut, if we listen. Ajahn Suchito describes it as the head is like a bird flying around, and the body is the tree, but the heart is the nest. The nest, like the palm of our hands, holding the little craving bird as though holding the craving heart as though it were a baby bird, as Shelley Graf says. But how do we get out of our heads? By making the heart feel safe, like a safe place to be. And getting a sense of our body in the here and now can really help with that. Our body intelligence can help us to relax and to breathe. And when the heart's stable in the body, then the thinking mind can settle down. Lama Willa Baker teaches that having a daily practice of moving into the body with curiosity and compassion is the best way to avoid a somatic bypass. And a somatic bypass is when we use the spiritual practice to avoid or dissociate from our body. So someone I love is hurting. That's why I was contemplating this. And so I'm no stranger to worry and sorrow, and I bet you're not either. And I noticed that caring deeply, it can be hard to find a balanced, loving, and compassionate response to loved ones who struggle. We can find ourselves tumbling into compassion's near enemy of pity when we feel sorry for the person. The near enemy, it's sort of similar to compassion, but it's the dark side. It's taken too far into pity where it's not helpful for anyone. Or we can get into fixing mode where we think we know what is better, what they need more than they do. And we can forget that each person is the heir of their own karma, and their well-being is dependent upon their actions and not my wishes for them. We can separate ourselves, too, by assuming that we know better and we can judge their behavior. And both pity and judgment just fortify this separate self. So we try to remember we're not responsible for another's actions, and we practice equanimity, an ability to hold our sorrows with more objectivity. T.S. Eliot says, "Teach us to care and not to care. Teach us to sit still, caring, but not swept away by it." That compassion for another or for the world can really feel overwhelming. So in frustration or an attempt to protect our hearts from suffering, we can extract ourselves from these painful feelings, and we can turn away from deeply feeling another's pain. Yet taken too far, this is another way of shutting down, of not feeling what we're feeling. We can seep into equanimity's near enemy, which is indifference. If I just don't think about it or feel it, I can pretend this sorrow is not here. And again, this separates us from our loved ones who are suffering or from a struggling world, so that we don't have to feel these painful feelings. And indifference can be a spiritual bypass where we avoid our feelings so we can stay steady in the moment, just hanging on, trying to stay steady. And we might notice that we toggle between the two. Pity, the near enemy of compassion, and indifference, the near enemy of equanimity. Yet both are strategies that separate us from our feelings and from the other person and from those who are suffering harm in the world. And our discomfort with this pain can lead us to try and fix them because our way is better than theirs, or because we're just dying to take control of an uncontrollable situation. Or we can just retreat and armor ourselves to get away from the discomfort and sever our connection. So when confronted with my loved one's struggles, I realized I was protecting my heart by stepping back and stepping away. And my wish was to have my heart be big enough to hold all of this. Their pain, my own, hold it with love in my head, in my heart, in my body, and to allow it in and not flee to distractions, to create a stillness in my heart body, to just stay with it, and to be a soft and sturdy home for my fears. I asked myself, what would happen if I reconnected to my deep-seated compassion for those who are suffering? And if I used this bittersweet gift of deep compassion to understand how that sense of sadness lives in me, so that I could stay connected and stay balanced. Mark Nepo has a poem that I love. Having loved enough and lost enough, I'm no longer searching, just opening. No longer trying to make sense of pain, but trying to be soft and sturdy home in which real things can land. These are the irritations that rub into a pearl. So we can talk for a while, but then we must listen the way rocks listen to the sea. And we can churn at all that goes wrong, but then we must lay all distractions down and water every living seed. So can we be a soft and sturdy home for our pain and our fears? Can we open our hearts to all of this and hold it with love and just stay? Now, we need to caution that, this moment-to-moment awareness, it isn't always available to us if these feelings and these fears are more than we can bear. It may feel too painful and just too difficult. And it can help to acknowledge this fear. Okay, here we are again, fear. Make friends with this fear. And then grounded in this awareness that it's here, we may need to wisely discern whether it's wiser to retreat from the situation until we're a little better resourced and supported, or whether we can move ahead despite our fear and our sorrow. Jack Kornfield says that we learn that it's okay to feel fear. Our mindfulness practice should challenge us to come to the edge of what we're willing to be with, and what we're willing to do, and what we're willing to open to. We can gradually learn to trust, how to sit firmly on the earth and kindly sense the contraction and trembling of our body without running away. We learn how to feel the floods of strong emotion, fear, grief, and rage, and to allow them to slowly release with mindfulness. Befriending fear becomes a gateway to freedom, an invitation to live more fully with trust and love. So having a very compassionate, open heart can feel heartbreaking without support. And that's why it is important to resource ourselves, to know what we need to feel safe and secure, whether that's a friend nearby, a therapist, a teacher, a walk in the woods, a self-compassion practice. We can invoke our own field of support, whatever it is that makes us feel safe, whether that's just invoking as we practice, the mother, the grandmother, the father, the pet, the animal, the friend, who always makes us feel secure and supported. And another resource is the Brahma Vihara practices, the heart practices. Tonight, I'm going to share with you a meditation that Philip Moffitt shared on using the Brahma Viharas to enter into compassion in a way that's balanced and supported and makes it possible to stay and feel safe and stay out of our heads because our hearts are safe. So the Brahma Viharas, the four heavenly abodes, are loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and sympathetic joy. They can be a really beautiful support to help us experience our joys and our sorrows. And I wanted to share that practice with you, and we're going to turn to that when we do our meditation. But I've been talking for a little while, so how about we take a little break and start again at 8 o'clock for our meditation. During the break, I think Sidna and I were talking about how, we try to avoid this sadness. And the fact is, it doesn't make it worse when you pay attention. You're just noticing. We're not creating sadness or trying to make it worse. And I think that's sometimes we worry that we're getting into pity, self-pity. Feel free to get comfortable wherever you'd like to sit for this meditation. And as I mentioned, we will finish, since we're doing, we're going to be touching on the Brahma Viharas, the heart practices. We will finish up with a metta song, and I welcome you to join. All right, entering our meditation, just tapping into those feelings that may have been aroused as you listen to the talk, as you watch the people in the hospital and reacted to them, reflecting on the music that we heard as we started this evening and any sensations that brought to bear. And just noticing how the body is feeling in this moment. And inviting attention to the breath. Perhaps a deep breath that helps us notice how the breath is rising through the body. Rising on the in-breath, and falling on the out-breath. Noticing the rise and fall in the chest and the belly. Noticing any sense of tension on the inhale, any release on the exhale. Now surrendering to the freedom of a natural breath, just full and deep. And knowing the feeling of the breath from the inside. And keeping that grounded sense of the body just as a background as we go through our meditation. Feeling grounded, available to be mindful, just noticing what is happening in this moment. Feeling this embodied presence in this moment. Just seeing clearly what is present, what is changing. And choosing to relate to this experience by staying with it. Just breathing into the ease of establishing mindfulness. And grounded in this way, we'll turn to an exploration of the Brahma Viharas. Evoking that feeling of kindness, of friendliness, of metta. Perhaps recalling a time when you have shown another great kindness or been treated kindly by another. A moment when your heart quivered with love and kindness for a loved one. Perhaps caring for someone in need, the warm and loving eyes of a beloved pet. A moment when you were moved with love for the world. Pure love and kindness without being attached to any story. Friendliness, benevolence, connection. And just invite the body to be infused with metta, noticing the felt sense of where it is in the body. Perhaps an inner vibratory feeling of metta in the body. If you notice it, you can welcome it and explore that felt sense. Just inviting the establishment of this metta. And tapping into the natural capacity of the heart to love without any other motive. Just an easeful sense, not forced. Now sharing this sense of metta, this friendliness with yourself or with another who's calling for your attention. You may use metta phrases to wish yourself or others well. May you be happy. May you be at ease. Or with an embodied sense of metta, we just may radiate that sense of metta, that feeling, the presence of metta, and radiate in all directions. Limitless, radiating metta. From the front to the back, on all sides, up and down. Just radiating this feeling of metta. And holding on to this sense of metta established in the body can invite the experience of equanimity or upekkha. Upekkha means something akin to taking the broad view, so it's not so constricted, more spacious. This feeling of things being balanced, calm, quiet, and not disturbed by difficulties. With metta and equanimity together, the mind can start to become more still, more collected. This more stable view of friendliness, of caring, May you be safe from harm, balanced by this knowing that all things are the heirs of their own karma. Their well-being is dependent upon their actions, not my wishes for them. Teach us to care and not to care. Teach us to sit still, caring but not swept away by it. Balanced. Loving in this balanced way allows us to keep appropriate boundaries, not to intrude or be intruded upon. This metta and upekkha together can stabilize. Noticing any sense now of this feeling of equanimity in this moment. Any felt sense in the body, sense in the heart. And with this balanced metta, we turn this love and friendliness and kindness to anyone at difficulty or one who's suffering, perhaps our compassion for our own or another's suffering. And we may choose to allow ourselves to feel it, to let it resonate. This compassion for the difficulty that we're feeling or others are feeling. Compassion, karuna. Notice if there's any difference in how compassion feels when you're inclining the mind to be balanced and to maintain this felt sense of metta. Teach us to care and not to care. Teach us to sit still. This sitting still is the combination of metta and equanimity. There's more space when we turn to compassion. There's a sense of boundary or restraint because we're not leaning into our compassion. We're not trying to control. We're not demanding it be fixed. We're not judging. We're being with. This compassion allows us to meet the difficult in ourselves or others without collapsing into it, without getting pulled into pity or fixing or judgment so that we fall into indifference. Our hearts quiver. contained and grounded. It's not less compassion, but more in a sustained and appropriate way. Feel the felt sense of this. Compassion is responsive, coming from this ground of metta and equanimity. It can be wisely felt, open to with confidence. How much better for that person, for ourselves, when it's grounded in this way. What is the felt sense of the heart? One can have compassion and feel safe when the Brahma Viharas are balanced. Having established the metta, the equanimity, the compassion, we turn to sympathetic joy, mudita. It's a well-wishing, an appreciation, and gratitude. Perhaps we appreciate our capacity to be available to this experience with love in a lasting and sustainable way. Not too much, not too little. Mudita can bring a smile. We can experience gratitude for a deep connection with loved ones, with ourselves, with the world. And equanimity keeps the balance from becoming over-identified with another's happiness, where you begin to think you know what will make them happy. When these four are in balance, anything can be turned toward, because you're not holding something back in case it's too much and you can't hold it in compassion. Or it's too bright and too wonderful and you can't be that vulnerable to someone else's good fortune. This is the power of the four Brahma Viharas and the felt sense of the four balancing. Recognizing that these are qualities that we can balance, and we can determine when we're out of balance and know how to bring them back into balance. And this gives us confidence in relation to practice in daily life. Being available in a measured way that allows us to sort out what is ours to respond to and not. This clarity and this wisdom, quietly reassuring. We might notice the mind state that's present now. Noticing whether it's a little more collected or calm. Any amount is good enough. Is there the tiniest hint of stillness or quiet or steadiness? This is resting awareness through the Brahma Viharas. It's not a doing, it's an opening, a staying with, a trusting. A mind at rest feels like this. The heart's soft and relaxed because the heart is safe. Our practice is to love whatever is in our path to awakening, to see clearly and hold kindly that which needs care. Ajahn Chah says, this is the peace that arises from practice. The peace that gives us the confidence that we can be with anything and we will be okay. This is faith in the practice. And as we conclude our practice, I'll begin the loving kindness song and invite you to join in. And invite anyone who sings to come join me at the mic. And I'll repeat each phrase 2 times. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well. May they be peaceful and at ease. May they be happy. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well. May they be peaceful and at ease. May they be happy. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be happy. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be happy. And thank you for your practice.